I am so happy to be back with you again, bringing you another episode of Ups and Downs for Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which I am happy to say I enjoyed again this week. Will it get another perfect score? We'll see how we get on. Yez are all legends. Let's go. Episode 2 of Season 1 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds is called Children of the Comet. And I'm gonna go straight in with an up. My God, I want to live in Captain Pike's quarters, but that's not actually what the up is, although very nearly. The entire scene in the teaser this week, I suppose teaser, cold open, whatever you want to call it, this week was just pleasant. It showed the entire crew, or at least the crew we're using for this scene, getting together, relaxing, chilling out. It was really good. It's good commanding is to get all of your crew together. We also get to hear Hemmer speak for the first time. Bruce Horak gets his first speaking role as the Enar, who is of course blind. This becomes a plot point. And we get a lot of Uhura, we get a lot of Spock this week as well. It's really good. It works for us. Now, I'm just gonna really quickly, I'm gonna slide in here with a little down. What? That was a nice perfect score Strange New Worlds had for a while. Spock standing right behind Hemmer explaining, you know, how his other senses are so much better. It was, I get that we were kind of setting up a bit of a joke on poor Uhura in this scene, but it was just a little bit, tiny little bit forced, I thought. It's just that, it just feels a bit weird that Spock is telling Hemmer's story for him. Like, let Hemmer speak, you know what I mean? I don't think it was quite necessary to approach it the way that they did, but it is a small down. I will say that, it's a small down. The way the scene is set up with Ortegas bringing Uhura in, that lovely joke about make sure you wear your dress uniform, and then of course how Pike answers the door and says, hello, haha, dress uniform. Basically, she got you, didn't she? Really, it's a nice, calm, comfortable scene between this bridge crew. Something that, I must say, I think we can nearly all agree, has been quite missing from some of the live-action Star Treks, which have tended to focus on individual characters more so than the crew. Obviously, the very early days, but judging by this episode and last week's episode, Strange New Worlds seems to be aiming for all of the crew getting something to do together. So yes, for me, definitely an up. A little bit of a down for that scene with Spock, Hemmer, and Uhura, a little bit forced. But overall, that was an up. It would be completely remiss of me if I didn't give a whopping up to the performance by Celia Rose Gooding. I love this interpretation of Uhura. So we've had, obviously, Nichelle Nichols, who originated the role. Then we had Zoe Saldana, who was quite a different version of Uhura, but I think very much suited the Kelvin timeline. And now, of course, we have Celia Gooding. And they're all quite distinct, while still capturing the essence of the character. Last week we had that wonderful scene in the turbo lift where, you know, Uhura's able to calm the Kylian person who's running through the ship with just engaging them in conversation about their own planet. This week we get the revelation that Uhura can speak 37 languages, 22 of which are from the native Kenyan, and I just thought it was a great way of giving a little bit of backstory to the character without bombarding us with, you know, massive events from their history. Yes, there was a sad story in that, you know, Uhura lost their parents in, you know, in this shuttle accident. It was sad, but also we don't waste too much time on the, I must tell you the story of my sadness. Oh, we don't do that. This is something that happened in life which led to a career path, which has led Uhura to this spot right now. And I thought that was really well handled. I also quite liked, particularly in their interaction with Pike as well, the where do you see yourself in 10 years? And of course, Pike's hesitation, you know, obviously we'll come to that, but I thought that was very nicely handled and well done. And throughout the whole episode, Uhura's skills are such that they feel essential in how they're part of the mission. You know, not just a tag along, not just a, let the cadet show up for the fun of it. No, they need to be there. And their specific skills lead to a greater understanding of what's going on the comet. The entire storyline with music, with math, there was a moment when I was looking at the down counter because I thought for a second that this very specific Kenyan song was going to end up being the key to understanding the comet. Now it wasn't, and that's what saved it for me. That is a well thought out plot. We're introduced to Uhura singing in the beginning. They sing when they're uncomfortable, and that then plays into later on in the scene. Like, of course, that would be, you know, think of the amount of times that you hum to yourself. Think of the amount of times that maybe, you know, you have like a nervous tic, you might click your fingers, you know, you might do something like that. We all have our tics that we do when we're nervous. And in this situation, Uhura sings. And it turns out to be the resonance that allows them to communicate with the comet. It was very, very well done, I thought. The overall depiction of Uhura in this episode is an up from me. I think it was important in Strange New Worlds that because we have such large characters, now we've seen a good chunk of Pike already between Discovery and here. We've seen a fair amount of Spock, and Spock and Discovery and Spock and Strange New Worlds are already just a little bit different. But of the other named characters, and of course there will be more, but of the other named characters, Uhura was probably the next big one. It's like, right, we need to get out in front with this depiction. Uhura can't really be a background character for the first while because, what's that meme online? You know, Uhura's just standing there and turns around. Well, what are you waiting for? I don't know, something amazing, I guess. That's how I feel with Uhura there as a character, and I feel Celia Gooding absolutely delivered on that this week. So yes, in case I was being some way unclear, massive up from me this week on the writing of Uhura and the depiction and performance that Celia Rose Gooding brought to the part. Now, a part of the interplay between Uhura and Spock as well has Uhura ask the joking question, what will your girlfriend think about that? To which Spock replies, Miss Chapel is not my girlfriend. I'm going to up that. Not the fact that they're not going out or that they are, or that there's flirting or whatever. It's the fact that, now we were discussing this off camera. To be very fair about the original series, some of the depictions of the female characters in the original series just don't hold up. And I think, I'm gonna plant my flag here. I don't think the depiction of Nurse Chapel in the original series was particularly great. Already, Jess Bush's Nurse Chapel is there's more agency to her, there's more confidence to her. To be totally fair, this was the 1960s, and not only that, but there was a little bit of a case of, great, we've cast Majel Barrett. For the love of God, don't tell Lucille Ball. Chapel didn't really get the fleshing out that she deserved in the original series. Obviously, she had good moments. Obviously, she had good episodes. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about her nearly 60 years later. This, I think, feeds into the article that was released earlier this year in which Akiva Goldsman discussed, you know, were they going to stick close to canon when it comes to Strange New Worlds? And the answer was basically yes, asterisks. It was they're not going to let canon completely kill separate storylines or, you know, get too bogged down in it. And I think if Chapel is developed much more as a character and there is more interplay between her and Spock in Strange New Worlds, I will be very happy for that. I don't think it will do anything but a service to the character. It might look like I'm upping the most random line in this episode. The fact, you know, the whole isn't she Spock's girlfriend thing. In a way, it's not the line I'm giving it up to. It's the fact that we're addressing Chapel is going to be more than the person handing Bones his equipment in the sickbay. And before you say, I know Chapel had more to do than that, but she didn't really have a lot to do. Now we have episodes like What Little Girls Are Made Of that are the exception, and I'm delighted for them, and I know it sounds like I'm equivocating, but I am upping the fact that we seem to be setting Chapel up to have quite a bit more to do in Strange New Worlds. As the crew discover that the comet is en route to hit Persephone 3 and before the shepherds really show up, there's a discussion of, well, what are we going to do? And Pike's like, well, grand, sure, listen, we're going to move this comet and everything is grand. And Pike, I'm going to stop you there. Down. Now, you might be looking at me going like, Sean, what are you about to down here? How often are we seeing that Starfleet's not supposed to interfere in what is deemed the natural course of evolution for a planet. Enterprise, Dear Doctor, of course, is the first one that jumps to mind. And that is the natural course of evolution will see a portion of the population eventually go extinct because of evolutionary reasons. Yes, Phlox stumbles upon what can be called a cure or an interference. The decision is made not to interfere because you can't interfere in the natural development of a world. Now, while it's set after Star Trek Into Darkness, Kirk and Spock are read the Riot Act by Pike for interfering in Nibiru's, the volcanic eruption in Nibiru. It's a fairly hard and fast rule that you don't do this. So the Enterprise rocks up to Persephone 3 and there's a comet en route to hit the planet. The Prime Directive states, grab some popcorn, pull up a seat, and watch that planet go boom. And I know how grim that sounds, but the way Pike handles it with, look, we'll fix this and head home for tea. That's breaking a pretty major rule there. It's not the rule breaking itself that I'm downing, it's the way it's handled. I feel there should have been a bit more of a, I know this breaks the Prime Directive, but we should approach to this scene. Please feel free to disagree with me. You might be looking at me going like, Sean, do you just fancy a bit of genocide of a morning? I do not. I do not. But gosh darn it, it's in the rule book. After Pike has decided to abandon General Order 1, he's probably still getting used to saying Prime Directive at this point, they of course start to brainstorm what they're going to do to both defeat the Shepherds, who are vastly more technologically advanced than they are, and also move a bloody great hunk of rock in the sky. And we get this great scene on the bridge of all of the crew working together. Up! This is what we're here for. This is an ensemble piece. This is actually a great episode for showcasing that Ortegas gets something to do, Una gets something to do, Spock, Uhura, you have La'an as well. They all have something to do, and it's important in building the audience's reactions to these characters. They're all useful in some way or another. We even have now, poor old Kyle is down in the transporter room again, but he's trying his very best to keep everyone alive. Poor old Sam Kirk. Now, he might be, the canary in that he gets injured and so therefore they learn how to deal with the comet. But it's a thankless job, but it's an important job. I really, really enjoyed in this episode just how well they displayed that there is an actual crew on board the Enterprise in case, or instead of a couple of individuals who are really quite good at their jobs and everyone else who stands there going, well done you, well done. Now, the next up is going to Ortegas. Evasive plan Ortegas Gamma 1. Brilliant. I mean, it actually looked like, she was trying to evade the Shepherds. It was some very, very impressive visuals, some fun, because you might not get really a sense of that they're ever going to destroy the Enterprise, which I'm actually going to come to now in a second as well. The way Pike speaks to her is, hey, you remember you always used to brag you were the best pilot in Starfleet? Time to show it off. And she kind of does. The Enterprise is not a fighter craft. This is not a shuttle that can, think of the Vipers from Battlestar Galactica who can, do a full 180, 360, whatever in 3 seconds. That's not the Enterprise. The Enterprise is an aircraft carrier. So being able to move it as quickly and as dexterously as she does shows intense skill. I really, really enjoyed this scene overall. It definitely deserves this up. It would get even more of an up except for this down. The first torpedo hit and the Enterprise's shields are down to 50%. That drops to 40%. That then drops to 25%. I then counted after it got to 25%, but before the Enterprise gets in front or behind of the Comet, 9. I counted 9. I did somewhat overcommit to the hits on the Enterprise. Yes, 9 torpedo hits on the Enterprise. If 3 or 4 managed to knock the shields down by 75%, they should have been destroyed. Now the easy answer is that the Shepherds decided to let them live, but did they? That unfortunately, that's it down for me. A little bit of inconsistency there. I think what they did is the first hit dropped the shields by too much. They should have gone, kind of like, 80%, 70%, then absolutely fine. But the fact that the first one brought it down to 50, then what do they do? Fire a tri-cobalt device and follow it up with like pins. The rest of the episode actually then ends quite pleasantly with the comet moves aside. We get this revelation of perhaps the comet has future knowledge, that it's possibly sentient, that it was a preordained path. If this was the first time Star Trek had ever addressed some sort of time travel thing, gosh, I mean, like, you know, it's not like we just got an entire season of Picard dealing with time travel. Don't mind that. That's not an issue at all. There will be reasons surely along the way, or maybe there won't be. I'm actually fine with that as well. We don't always need an explanation to everything. But one thing that I really want to give an up to at the end is the way Pike handles. So there's a conversation between Una and Pike in that last scene where they discuss about basically, you don't need to accept this fate that you've seen in the future. So an up is that he starts looking at the people whose lives he's going to save. Actually, this is more than an up. This is a latinum up. I love this because you need to balance your uncertainty with, if I take X action, will it result in Y? But X action has a name. In fact, it has 5 names. And the names of the crewmen whose lives he saves. But knowing that, doesn't that mean you can do something about it? I thought this was a very clever ending. And of course, there is no fate but what we make for ourselves. Okay, right, I'm basically quoting the Terminator here, but it works. And this was a nice, contemplative, but also hopeful end to this episode. Thoroughly enjoyed this episode. So let's go through all of the things we spotted at Cetacean Observations. Now, the first Easter egg I have is actually a joke by Ortegas, not the one about the dress uniform, but the fact that she says it's not just the command crew that get invited to the captain's quarters, which I think is a bit of a nod toward the other series where you have, even DS9, you kind of have all of the ops crew rock up whenever Sisko's having dinner. You know, things like that. So I think that was a deliberate nod toward that. Now you have, of course, Hemmer, who is an Enar. We get a reference to a Nausicaan. The Persephone 3 is an M-class planet. Now we see a bottle of Saurian brandy in Pike's quarters. We also see, last week, what actually I didn't spot because it was cloaked, was a clear model of the 1701. This week, mounted on the wall, is a clear model of the NX-01. Further proof, in fact, from our interview with Doug Drexler, that the NX-01 appears in every single iteration of Star Trek. There is a moment where Sam Kirk gets blasted back and he's turned over on his side to reveal his face. Does that look a little bit like that exact shot of the reveal of his face in Operation Annihilate? Uhura and Spock make music together. This is a callback all the way to Charlie X, where Spock was playing the instrument and Uhura was singing in that episode. There is a moment, now it's very faint, but if you listen very closely, it looks like there's a nod to James Horner's Spock theme from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Pike orders pattern April Omega 3. The original series phaser sound plays over the phaser blasts from the 1701. Pike says that if the Enterprise explodes, the trilithium resin in their warp core will detonate the comet. Spock pilots shuttle number 7, which is of course the Galileo. Now, Spock's hiding on the comet, that's very reminiscent of the way
the Millennium Falcon
hides behind the Star Destroyer in The Empire Strikes Back, and Obi-Wan hides in Attack of the Clones. Yes, I'm aware those are different franchises. Totally fine with that. But still, you can have nods like that and everything. I thought I had more than that. And that's everything for Cetacean Observations. Thank you so much for watching this week, folks. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comments below. If you spotted anything else that you reckon should be included in Cetacean Observations, you let me know in the comments below. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, every time that you do, you are helping this channel grow, which allows us to do videos with Doug Drexler. Please don't forget to check out that video. That was a pretty cool one. Until I see you again, live long and prosper. Have yourself a wonderful week, a wonderful day. My friends in Ukraine, stay strong. We are thinking of you, we wish you well, and please God, this all ends for the better soon. Look after yourselves. Everyone, stay safe, have a good day, make it so.